period. Not just agricultural goods, it's what it started with. But a rumor came, they wanted to do it on all imports. That is one of the things that helped bring about the stock market crash. That's one of the things that helped make people say, oh my God, I'm going to be caught with my pants down. It's going to become all of a sudden to import all the stuff I've been importing, I'm going to be paying how much? Or all of a sudden this company or that company is going to pay what to the government? And this legislation was before Congress, and they've been trying to get it in for a while, and it looked like it was going to pass, and eventually did pass. The bad thing about tariffs is, so everyone who was skeptical was right. The government was starting to get more into the economy, and it scared the hell out of a lot of people, and they were right. They were right, because eventually it happened. The bad thing about tariffs is it usually gets an answer. Oh yeah? You're going to charge us 50% extra on the price of a good to bring that good into your country? Well, you can't take goods into our country then for 50%, or 70 now. Screw you, 70%. 80, 90, whatever. Or no more imports. We don't take imports from America anymore, whatever. So we try to tax everything coming in. And then everybody else stops buying stuff from us as a retaliatory move by the governments. And there is this false notion of keeping jobs at home, which is still prominent today. Anyways, throughout the 1930s, it mentions here some of these efforts. The Roosevelt administration then has to spend time negotiating with other countries, reducing, lowering, and eliminating tariffs in trade agreements and stuff. We could have skipped a lot of that. Skip down the paragraph a bit. The Trade Agreement Act 1934 authorized the President to negotiate reciprocal trade agreements with other nations. Roosevelt was empowered to lower tariff rates by as much as 50% on imports from countries that agreed to reduce duties on U.S. goods. Many such agreements were negotiated by Secretary of State Cordell Hull. Lowering tariff barriers helped revive international trade. Great. The state is fantastic. You know, at first, when you learn about it in school, you say, I'm sure glad the government's around to prevent that now. And then you learn the government created the problem and kept the problem going, and only by slackening off and getting back out of the economy did we ever get out of the Depression. I mean, we entered a state of fascism in the 30s that we might not have left. We could have just fumbled along, and to this day we would be in a state where, you know, India is today, where some people still don't have cars and stuff like that, where some people just can't afford cars, and we'd have crap cars. Highly government regulated. The government would regulate that you can't make more than 50,000 cars a year because we want to keep the price of cars high. Otherwise it would ruin the car industry, which is now 0.2% of the economy. We couldn't have 0.2% of the economy disappear. You know, good God, I'm sure glad that they didn't stay in the economy. It's like France is today. They're just gonna stay there. They're gonna stagnate. And every year that they lose out on 3 or 4 or 5% growth, the next year that 3 or 4 or 5% would be bigger. You see, and over 10 years you lose an order of magnitude. 3% a year over 10 years. 3% on the 10th year is bigger than on the first year, isn't it? And if you don't grow at all for 10 years straight, you're missing out on a lot of wealth. A lot of wealth. And they're just rotting. Rotting. France and Germany and a few others. Okay. As Russia did for decades, and we tried in the 30s. So you're beginning to see the vision of the 30s as a period of fascism, economic fascism in America. Not a period of economic depression, but a period of economic fascism, which there's no other way to look at it except the worst unemployment, the slowest economic growth, the least productivity. All that put together, we say depression. How about economic fascism? How about the economic fascism of the 1930s? How about that for a new phrase? Saltzman talks about it. He says, so we were just suffering a fascistic dictatorship in the 1930s. So I'm saying let's stop saying the Great Depression. Let's call it the economic fascism of the 1930s. But anyways, the agricultural adjustment Act of 1933, going to agriculture now, and how did it benefit, how did the government help out there? Well, the Ag Adjustment Act of 33 sought to 1. Raise farm prices by curtailing production. 2. Increase farmers' incomes by paying them a bonus for acreage withdrawn from cultivation. Oh, and there's no number 3, pardon me. This act was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court and was replaced by the Soil Conservation and Domestic Allotment Act of 1936 and the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1938. These enactments achieved the objectives of the first law but eliminated its unconstitutional provisions. It doesn't mention in here something that Mr. Saltzman goes over, something you can get information on a lot of places, the court packing plan. FDR couldn't get these things made constitutional. They couldn't get his fascist controls completely implemented. And so he provised a plan to add 6 justices, I believe, to the 9 that were on the court, and so there would be 15 justices. He would appoint all 6 of them, and for the remainder, you know, they would be his ideological pet dogs, and for the remainder of those people's lives, they would be on there judging from FDR's fascistic sort of basis. You know, socialists, Reds, Democrats, the new liberals, not old school liberal like freedom liberal, but liberal as in fascist liberal. Now let's just talk about that for a second here. It sought to raise farm prices by curtailing production. I already mentioned if you cut your price in half and double the price, cut your production in half and double the price, you're nowhere. Even if you could raise prices by cutting production, it's a fantasy to think that you would raise the prices a significant amount. The reason that the price is low has got to be something else except overproduction. We can't reduce the amount we have and get richer. I mean, you put it like that, it's obvious. You cannot destroy wealth and become more wealthy. Now, if it's true that that people were producing too much, if it's true that individual farmers couldn't make a living off of what they could produce on the land they could work, then they should have let farmers mechanize, buy up other farms around them as the other farmers went broke and left and decided to quit trying. And as these farmers mechanize with bigger farms, they're able to actually squeeze out a living for them and their family off of maybe 1,000 acres, where it used to only take 100 acres to make a living. But now it takes 1,000 acres. They should have let that happen. But they fought against and punished mechanization because of overproduction. So they also fought against the trend of corporate farms. They fought to try to keep individuals on farms, they facilitated purchasing your own land as much as they could. Bad, 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 bad. Anyways, we're done with U.S. history of review text. We got quite a bit of material out of that, didn't we? You got to watch for those ones because you know, like there was no mention of the court packing plan. It just and everything's just what the government did to help, what the government did to help, what the government did to help, what the government did to help. The government didn't help at all. The Great Depression by Shannon, by David A. Shannon, Associate Professor of History, University of Wisconsin, published 1960, Prentice Hall. Now this is published 20 years, one generation after the end of the Great Depression. The subject of this book is the impact of the Great Depression of 1929 and thereafter upon the American people. It does not concentrate upon economics, nor politics, nor social and intellectual matters, although there is something here of all of these. Its emphasis is the effects of the Depression upon its victims, and much of the material allows the reader to see the events of the 1930s through the eyes of these victims. We're going to be sampling from an article written in 1942 by an economist. We're going to be sampling from newspaper articles. This is a great little book, 150 pages long at the most, 140, 160 pages. Great book. You should get a copy of it because we're going to spend a while in it, but we're not going to get past page 20, 21.